Hi everyone, welcome to Metrix Advisory. My name is Priyan Fernando. Given that it's the start of a brand new financial year, I thought it's the best time to talk about some of the current challenges faced by business owners out there, especially if you're a small business owner, and also look at some of the tips as a small business owner to be prepared to weather the current challenges that's being thrown out. So let's look at a few current challenges in the market. Number one, there's mounting pressures on supply chain. And this started with COVID, obviously, because of international borders being closed. And subsequently, with the Ukraine-Russia war, supply chain issues have blown out of proportion. Just to give some stats that was reported by ABS as recently as June 2022, we had 40% of companies here in Australia that were impacted by supply chain issues that had a significant impact on their revenue. 59% of companies had some sort of impact on their revenue driven by supply chain matters. And only 1% of companies reported a non-impact due to supply chain issues. So you can see how much of an impact supply chain has had across the last 6 months or so. Next up, everyone's talking about this nowadays, which is inflation. It's become such a buzzword right now, and inflation is soaring across the globe. Prices are increasing, and that's become, obviously a massive challenge for all business owners right now, especially where they're considering, the increase in material costs, increase in wages. Do I pass it on to customers, and what sort of impact that would have on my top line? Would I get the same number of sales? Can I keep consistency with revenue? And how do I, maintain those profit margins, right? So inflation has become a critical challenge as well. Third one I want to talk about is interest rates. We recently had another interest rate hike announced by the RBA, another 0.5%. So obviously with an increased interest rate, what that means is the cost of doing business has just increased overnight with business loans, etc. So that's another challenge that business owners are having to face right now, and this is only going to continue to increase across the coming 6 to 12 months as sort of announced by RBA. The next one I want to cover is talent acquisition. Hiring people, retaining people, and especially recruiting people with the right skill set is proving to be a significant challenge across Australia, particularly because obviously we're an isolated country, and we because driven by COVID, we've had to shut the international borders. So population growth across Australia across the last 2 years has been quite stagnant. So finding people, recruiting people, and most importantly retaining people in this current market is proving to be a challenge for all businesses, small and big businesses alike. Inclement weather. We're going through it right now here in New South Wales. We've had floods at the start of the year, and then across the western states of Australia we've had the bushfires during the summer. So inclement weather is proving to be another challenge. It's it's been a topic of discussion as of late because of global warming and whatnot. So that's another key aspect that's affecting businesses out there, especially businesses that are in agriculture, manufacturing, production, etc. Along with inclement weather, another item that goes sort of hand in hand is increased insurance costs. Obviously, because of the uncertainty that's around in the market right now, insurance companies are having to increase their premiums to make sure that they're covered if and when things go wrong. But as a small business owner, what happens is when your insurance cost goes up, obviously the cost of doing business goes up, and therefore it has an impact on your profit margin. Also renewed focus by the ATO with the ATO outstandings or the statutory commitments that a business owner has to commit with. So we saw that during the COVID-driven 2 years, that the ATO was lenient as far as ATO debts or liabilities are concerned. But as of late, we know that the ATO has imposed sort of strict guidelines around making sure that your lodgements are filed on time, and if you're finding it difficult to pay, make sure you get into some form of payment arrangement. So, as I explained, there's, multiple challenges in the current environment that's making it difficult for businesses to, sustain. There's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of fear. We've seen that the global stock market's taking a bit of a tumble. The cryptocurrency market has taken a bit of a tumble as well. So there's talk about the housing prices, driving south. So there's a fair bit of uncertainty in the market that's, driving down consumer confidence and therefore spending patterns, etc. So as a small business owner, it is so important for you to be vigilant of what's in store and be prepared, right? So I've prepared a few tips that I want to share with all of you where, as a small business owner, you want to be proactive. And one of the best ways to be proactive is actually to have a business plan. If you don't have a business plan, or if you haven't had a look at a business plan for a while, make sure you revisit your business plan, or make sure you come up with a business plan. And your business plan has to be in line with your customer value proposition. It's about time you get rid of your ego. It's about time you get rid of what you think is needed for the market. Make sure you're addressing a customer pain point. Make sure that you're trying to solve a problem that a customer has. And remember, when you're thinking about this, that customer requirements, people's needs just change on a daily basis pretty much right now. So make sure that whatever you are offering, the product or services, whatever you're offering, it's relevant in the current market. So the tip number one is to make sure that you actually have a business plan. Make sure you have a vision, something to look forward to that aligns with a customer value proposition, right? Tip number two is essentially make sure that you actually have a budget. You make sure you have a budget that aligns with your business plan, that aligns with your vision, that aligns with your, the customer value proposition that you're trying to solve. So it's about putting some financials together so that you have an understanding what you're looking forward to, right? You have an understanding of what you're trying to achieve across the coming 3 months, coming 6 months, the coming 12 months, etc. Now, once you have budgets in place, the third tip that I'm going to share is making sure that you communicate, right? And that's one of the things that a lot of business owners forget, even at the big end of town, that you have budgets in place, but they become almost of no value if they're not communicated with the wider team, because the employees of a business need to understand what the business is trying to achieve, what the vision is. That gives them visibility, that sort of helps them build accountability within the team as well. And therefore, it's imperative that you share the business plan, the budgets with the wider team, so they have something to look forward to, that they're motivated, they're driven to achieve certain outcomes as part of their employment. The next one I want to touch on is essentially to make sure that you have some form of reporting in place. So you have, ideally, what I recommend is having monthly financials in place so that you track your performance on a monthly basis and you report any variances to budget. And that way you actually learn. You learn where things went wrong last month and what are the improvements you can make. What I see, especially with a lot of small business owners, is that they actually do their financials once a year. Right at the end of the financial year. Why they do it? For compliance purposes, because they've got to lodge a tax return. Now, that's simply not good enough, because by the time you come to the end of the 12th month, you're not in a position to reverse or change anything. Whereas if you actually had monthly financials in place, at the end of the first month itself, if you realize, areas that need to be tweaked, etc., you can tweak them straight away. And you can learn and you can sort of continue to improve, right? Along with monthly financials, it's also really important to have the right, structures and systems in place, because you wanna be able to share key drivers or key metrics of the business, things like sales, things like revenue, things like cash flow or cash in bank, things like debtors, things like creditors. You want to be able to look at these key metrics of a business as often as you can. So I almost sort of encourage business owners to have weekly sales reporting or weekly cash flow reporting, where you actually go through these stats on a weekly basis and share them with the wider team so that the team actually knows, their journey. And for example, if week one you have fallen behind on target, how do you sort of catch it up in week two or week three or week four for that matter, right? It's so important to make sure that you have metrics in place and that you monitor these metrics on a weekly basis rather than having to wait for the end of the month. So there you go. There's a few tips that small business owners can sort of look into across, in terms of protecting their business right now, as well as growing it into the future, especially in an environment like this where there's a lot of challenges. It's ever so evolving. There's a lot of things happening. There's a lot of pieces that are moving. So it's important that you actually pay attention to some of those things that I highlighted. So there you go. That's it. I hope you found the session informative, and if the session resonated with you, make sure you like, comment, and share. Thank you for watching.